Hi, everyone. We are so excited for this conversation today, specifically for military homeschool families. Thank you for joining us. This is our eighth military Facebook Live. I can't believe it. I was counting today, eight. So, my name is Natalie Mack, and I'm a high school educational consultant and military outreach coordinator for HSLDA. I'm also a retired Navy chaplain's wife and homeschooled five of my own kids. Four have graduated and gone on to college and graduate school, and I have a rising 10th grader. Joining me today for this discussion is my co-laborer and awesome HSLDA Group Services attorney, Darren Jones. So, to all my fellow military homeschooling parents joining us on Facebook, we are so glad that you are here. And to the incredible, hardworking support group leaders, welcome. Will you let us know in the comments where you are joining from? And if you are a leader of a military homeschool support group, please give us your group name and your location. Also, be sure to put any questions that you have about this topic to Darren and myself in the comments, and we will save time a bit later to go over those. So now I will go ahead and say, Darren, I will turn it over to you if you can share a little bit about yourself, your family, and your role at HSLDA.
Okay, thanks, Natalie. I describe myself sometimes as a homeschool grad and a homeschool dad. My wife and I both finished our education through homeschooling. And when we had kids, we both knew that we were going to homeschool. We have four kids. We have graduated, two of them from homeschooling, and we still have two. In fact, just last week, I finished up standardized testing because that's the thing that's required here in Virginia. My wife and I homeschool as a team, and we've done that since the kids were fairly young. I do a lot of the planning. Sarah does a lot of the implementing. Now, my role here at HSLDA, I'm an attorney. My primary role is working mostly with homeschool groups. So I talk with them about everything from statements of faith to nonprofit status to just kind of brainstorming about what they're going to do as groups.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and welcome those who are coming on in. I welcomed them at the beginning, but I know that some are joining us. I see Jessica located in Fayetteville, Fort Bragg. Welcome, welcome, welcome. When you come on in, go ahead and say where you are joining from. If you lead a group, please let us know the name of the group and where it is located. Any questions you have, post those over there. We'll take some time. Welcome, welcome, Dr. Douglas Pietersma. Thank you so much, as always. So a little backstory. I founded and led a group called Military Christian Homeschool Support Group. It was in Virginia Beach, and it was from 2005 to 2010. So I had a little bit of a quote that I wanted to just mention what was told to me. So a young teary-eyed military spouse said, being in this support group has made all the difference. She said, my husband was deployed. I was stressed out homeschooling two autistic children, and I knew public school was not the answer for us. I wouldn't have been able to keep going without this group's support. So this is a common refrain of gratitude I have heard over my 20 plus years of military homeschool support group leadership. So my resume of military support group leadership began at Camp Pendleton, where I coordinated the field trips for Camp Pendleton Christian homeschoolers. And we had a new baby, the fourth child. I don't know what I was thinking of, but we made it happen. We then PCS'd or relocated to Little Creek Navy Base. That's now Joint Expeditionary Base, Little Creek, Fort Story. And that's where I founded the Military Christian Homeschool Support Group that I mentioned earlier. Then we moved across the ocean, transatlantic move to Naples, Italy, where I led the group there. So if any of my Naples, Italy members, Naples Christian homeschoolers, I'll shout you out. If you're on, please say hello. So then we moved to Marine Corps Air Station, New River, near Camp Lejeune in eastern North Carolina, where I moderated the Camp Lejeune Military Homeschoolers Group. And then we PCS'd here to Fort Belvoir in Northern Virginia, and I'm serving as president of the Belvoir Home Educators. So all of that to say, I've been in military homeschool support group leadership. This topic today is really dear to my heart. And so I hope our leaders will come on. If you watch the replay later, please still comment and please still get in contact with us with the links that we're going to share. So let's chat about military homeschool support groups, their importance, their relevance, and how HSLDA can support your support group. So I wanted to say, like I mentioned about Camp Pendleton, I know firsthand how impactful homeschool support was to me in my first year. Literally in 2001, when we began homeschooling, we got orders to Camp Pendleton, California. So I was homeschooling with 2 children. I had a toddler who was 3.5 and a 4th baby on the way. We did relocate across country to Camp Pendleton. That 4th child came a little early, 2 weeks later, with boxes all around us. But I had quickly gotten connected to my military homeschool support group, which made all the difference. And so, Darren, can we talk a little bit about the importance of homeschool support groups, military ones, just in general homeschool, those support groups?
Sure. All right. So when my parents started homeschooling me, it was back in 1989. And one of the first things we did, because we didn't particularly know what we were doing, we joined together with several other homeschool families in our church to do some classes and enrichment together. And it was really important for us to have that community. Some of the things we did every month, the parents would meet together on a Sunday night to talk over homeschooling. And I understand cry over homeschooling and then pray for each other for the homeschooling. And that was really important to them, especially in those first couple of years when there were 6 of us families who were starting it new this year. So it was pretty cool. Now, from the kids' perspective, it was great because every week we'd get together on Monday afternoon and we would do things like drama. We wrote and put on our own play, made all the props and stuff. We were taught public speaking. That was fun for me because my mom taught it, and I didn't actually realize how much my mom enjoyed talking in public and how good she was at teaching it. So that was fun. We did history, we did geography. It made Monday a really interesting day, and that's got to be some sort of miracle because even as an adult, I still don't like Mondays.
Right.
But that group was so important to us. And then over the years here at HSLDA, as I've been working as a legal assistant and then as a lawyer, we've seen that homeschooling community is really effective and important. My boss, when I got here, he was one of the HSLDA lawyers. He's now retired. He used to comment that Lone Ranger homeschooling is not a good idea. It's not the way to give your kids the best education. And so when I'm talking with new homeschool families, especially military, where you don't have maybe the built-in community that, if you've lived in a place for 10 years, you would, I always encourage them, sign up with something. It might be joining your local state organization for their newsletter and ideas of where field trips are going on around in the state, or joining a co-op or a parent support group that does Mom's Night Out, or even just getting together a local park for a fun outing every other Friday, but something where it's not just you forced to do it on your own with no help. I really think that's vital.
I agree. And that was part of the story I was sharing about my own personal experience. And so it's so important, especially as we have increasing numbers of homeschoolers, which we are all very happy about. We want to make sure that it's really important that you reach out and get support. And your military homeschool support group is one of the main places to get that support. So I definitely want to encourage that. And that's been my personal experience. I want to also say, as you are joining us, come on in and say where you're joining us from. If you lead a military homeschool support group, please put the name in the chat where it's located. And any questions you have, I see we have a few people coming. Lily, Candace, Christine, hello. So Darren, how does HSLDA support homeschool groups, period?
I think that's a question mark, actually, Natalie.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Right.
Grammar nerd here. Yeah, we actually support homeschool groups in a lot of ways. For one thing, I talk with probably about 15 or 20 groups a week, answering questions. How do you start a homeschool co-op? How do we change? We've been running with 5 families. It's been really nice. And all of a sudden, 20 more families want to join. What do we do? How do we handle finances? How do we deal with membership? That's a big one, especially for the groups that are growing or those that have a lot of turnover, like, for example, your military support groups. We list several thousand homeschool groups on our website. You can search for groups in your zip code. You can filter the search by things like childcare provided or support for special needs students. And HSLDA also sends speakers to homeschool conferences all over the country. I routinely travel to states to help state organizations put on retreats to train local group leaders. I've done that in Virginia and Iowa and Oregon and Texas and all sorts of different places. So those are some of the ways that we support homeschool groups.
Okay, that's awesome. Prior to us going live, Darren and I were talking about the zip code method, and we're working. So we know that those in Okinawa are not likely watching right now. You might still be up, but we were talking about just kind of reaching, the vastness of the military and the support groups that exist for homeschoolers. So definitely that's awesome. So I contacted you, Darren, several months ago about a few concerns that I had regarding Fort Belvoir and Belvoir home educators that I lead. Yep. And I wanted to talk about insurance needs and child safety policies. So this is a new arena for Belvoir home educators. And it's probably, I think I've heard you speak on this a lot. It's probably a new arena in terms of support groups realizing this is an area that we may have overlooked, not intentionally, of course, but just kind of not really having the information and the knowledge. And so you took a lot of awesome time spending with me and answering my questions, which I was able to take back all that resources to our board. So can you talk a little bit with us about some of the concerns that you have actually assisted groups with?
Sure. Okay. So in preparation for this webinar, I just kind of went through a little bullet points of stuff that I've talked with groups about in the last week. Okay. So I had a nice about half-hour conversation with a New Jersey ex-public school principal who wants to start up a homeschool group for families in her area. I talked with a support group. They want to find more board members because the 3 that are on their board are kind of getting burned out. So we discussed ways to find new board members. I helped the group in Florida figure out how to operate, kind of walking the line between we don't want to be a private school, but we also aren't a daycare, but we're meeting together more than just like every Monday afternoon. How do we do that? And so I worked through them with that. I spent a very interesting half-hour brainstorming with a Muslim homeschooler who wanted to start up a homeschool group that was less religiously exclusive than the ones that she was finding in the upstate Midwest. Okay. I've talked with groups about insurance and their statements of faith and different business models. Do you operate as a business? Do you operate as a nonprofit? What are some of the pros and cons of that? All of those that are things that I talk about. And also what you were mentioning, I help groups with the policy. So I usually recommend if you're starting a group or maybe you're coming in as new leadership or something, there are maybe 5 or 6 areas that you'll want to think about what your group's policies are. The finances, protection of children, making sure that you have some sort of medical policy. If your kid is sick, stay home. Sounds basic, but some groups, they're used to operate with just kind of, a few families getting together, and again, all of a sudden they're growing or something. Other areas might want to consider just some of the legality things. What is your business model going to be? Are you going to need insurance? Do you have to think about fire code and zoning issues? So all sorts of stuff. Honestly, get me started on this. And that's why a lot of my conversations, go 30 minutes or more.
No, but you have such great information. I always enjoy talking to you because it helps me think a little bit out of the box. Sometimes you'll say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And that's how that whole process started with my support group that I lead now. And I think for and this is an assumption, but from my experience with military homeschool support groups that I've led, the child safety policy there, I think that a lot of times we're thinking, oh, we're a homeschool group and, everybody, is here for all great positive reasons and our kids are safe and we all love kids because why in the world would we be homeschooling anyway? And, homeschoolers have lots of kids and just the whole thing. So it's all focused on all the positive about homeschooling, which we applaud. But there's some realities there that it's a hard topic to talk about. And sometimes as homeschoolers, we don't really want to maybe believe that's an arena we need to look at and have policies in place.
Yes, but it is. I tell people, I'm a lawyer. It's my job to come up with worst case scenarios. But I've talked with 5 groups whose treasurers embezzled funds from them because they didn't have anyone watching the treasurers. I've talked with 3 groups where kids were abused at their group because they didn't have policies making sure that someone was watching the kids. I've talked with groups where they've had to expel students for pulling knives on other students. And homeschoolers are humans. And anytime you have humans getting together, in general, they're good and decent and loving people. But sometimes things go wrong, people go wrong. And that's the type of thing where as group leaders, you have to think about, all right, we want to protect everyone here at the group. So we're going to do 2 deep leadership. There will never be a time when you have just one child with an unrelated adult in a room together. It doesn't happen. And if we ever see it happen, that adult gets fired. Things like making sure that the kids know that there are safe adults to come talk to. If there's something going on in their life that they need to talk, 13, 14-year-olds, sometimes the homeschool group leader can be a good type of safe person to come talk to. I'm not trying to I never advise group leaders to get in between the parents and the kids. But sometimes the parents are rather grateful to have someone else in the child's life to speak into it and lead them. I know I had a number of people in my teens where that was the case. Even though my parents are the most wonderful people in the world, it was sometimes nice to talk with the young man who was leading our homeschool study in military stuff about just life issues. So, yeah, those are the types of things as group leaders, like you say, sometimes we want to hide and think that those things don't exist. But we're all humans. And so sometimes you need to think about how are we going to make this the safest space possible for our families.
I totally agree, definitely. And for those who are on the military homeschool leaders and groups, which is what this topic, this live is about, we typically meet on an installation. And so we need to have policies in place because we may not have legal representation from our JAG officers about some of these situations, or the question will be asked, well, what policies do you have in place? Did you have anything to try to prevent this from happening, or what would be your response? And so I appreciate you for that and kind of wake up call. And so we're doing great. We're moving along as a board to get those in place. So let's move on though. Let's chat a little bit about HSLDA and the group directory and what's the benefit to a support group in registering in the directory, and particularly the military homeschool support groups that we are actually trying to reach with this Facebook Live.
Okay, so first a little description. HSLDA has a website. It's hslda.org. I hope the group leaders know that because there is a wealth of information on that side. But one of the nice things on it is there's a button that allows you under the community tab to find a group near you. And we've set it up by zip code. And we did that very specifically because some states are small. I grew up in New Hampshire, and if you wanted to go to a support group in New Hampshire, any listing by state was great. But you're looking at some of the military bases, Alabama, then you get Texas, California. So we set it up by zip code search. And so, But another thing that we did there is you can also filter that search by, for example, do you want to look for homeschool groups that will do classes? Some do, some don't. You can also filter it just for those that are exclusive to the military or not. Some are, most aren't. But if you want one that's just your people, then we have designed the search to be that way. The benefit to being listed on that is it makes it easier for homeschool families to find your group. And we are always trying to add new groups. I just added a new one actually 2 days ago. I spent about 20 minutes talking with a group leader, taking down information. So they're now findable for homeschoolers, and that was a West Virginia one. So if you look on our website and your group is not listed, please contact me. groupservices@hslda.org. That's the email address. We want to get as many groups up there as possible and then keep the information fresh so that when new families come onto base, they can just type in, all right, this is the area that I'm in. Okay, I see here are a couple groups that are meeting off base, and here's one that's meeting on base. These look interesting to me. And so the other thing we do too is you don't have to actually be meeting in person. We list Facebook groups and online chats. As long as they're homeschool support, we list those as well. And sometimes, especially for new homeschool families, they want to kind of get a feel through social media or through online before they show up in person. So that's something to think about too for your groups.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. So the director is really a very nice resource. I'm appreciative of all the work that you do. And we're working on getting as many of our military groups in. So if you have been joining us or just joined us rather, thank you so much. Come on in and say where you're joining us from and where you're joining us from. And if you are a support group leader, please put the name of your group, please, and where it's located. And any questions, we're going to take questions. So go ahead and put some in the chat. So I was so excited as a support group leader when our group was awarded a Compassion Meet the Moment grant. So we have one of our board positions is a librarian, and this mom was actually, that was her professional career prior to homeschooling. So it was perfect in terms of when you're looking for volunteers for your support group. So our librarian applied for the grant, and so she's responsible for managing our lending library. So with this Meet the Moment grant from Compassion, our support group purchased a telescope, microscopes, IEW curriculum, and loads of other resources for our incoming and outgoing families. So can you speak a little bit about the grant opportunities that are offered to groups and with a certain number of HSLDA members?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'll just preface this by saying one of my favorite parts about working with group services here at HSLDA is I get to talk with so many creative people because homeschool groups do so many different things. So one of the fun things that we do is we get to send them money to do fun and creative stuff with. All right, so there are a couple things. First of all, HSLDA has a discount group program, and this is where homeschool groups sign up with us for free. When you're getting your group listed on our website, we ask you, do you want to be a discount group? And that means that any of the members of your group get to join HSLDA for a discount. It's currently, I believe, $15 a year off. And that's every year they're with your group. Now, if your group is big enough that it has at least 15 families in it who are current members of HSLDA, every spring, we send around an email to those groups, and they can apply annually for group grants between $500 and $5,000. And that can be used for pretty much anything with your group. I've had groups do the lending library, like you talked about. I had one group just hire someone a couple extra hours a week to answer the phones because the phones were ringing off the hook. That was back in early 2021. We've had groups use that money to be able to send people to the state homeschool conference, because that's a great place to get encouragement, look at curriculum and all sorts of stuff. So that is one of the grant programs that we offer. And also every year we give out a free HSLDA membership to groups, as long as you update your information on our website and review your roster of members to make sure that the people who have told us here at HSLDA that they're members of you are actually in your group and haven't been moved overseas or something like that, and are on to another one that we need to connect them with. So those are a couple things. But additionally, this year we are offering a program called HSLDA Group Connections, and this one's been pretty exciting to me. So here's how it works. Let's say there's a homeschool family. They're new to homeschooling. They have joined up with your military support group, as of course, all new homeschooling families should do, join a group. And then they join HSLDA and they use your group's discount group code. Then at the end of every quarter, we run a report and find out, okay, we had so many hundred families join HSLDA for the first time using these codes. We send your group $50. And that is $50 for every family. There was one support group out in California at the end of last quarter that apparently had a join HSLDA weekend, and we ended up sending them a check for $1,500. So you don't have to have any particular numbers of HSLDA members in your group to take advantage of that. We have written a lot of $50 checks for just new groups that started up. One family joined HSLDA for the first time. Great, we send the group $50. So that's group connections. So those are a couple ways that we can financially help homeschool groups.
That's awesome. I love that. I hope our viewers are hearing that and those opportunities. Can you talk about the group you just mentioned that had the Join HSLDA? That's an awesome idea. I mean, can you give us like a little bit about that event?
Sure. Well, I don't know about this specific group, this particular one, but there have been a number of groups over the years that, for example, say, well, if you want to join our group, you have to join HSLDA. Usually that's been in states where there's high regulation, or the group just wants to make sure that everyone in there has legal help if their homeschool program gets in trouble. That's what HSLDA is for, among other things, but that's kind of our primary purpose. So but apparently this particular group, which was out in California, asked people at the end of February to join HSLDA, and I think that they probably let people know, and this will financially benefit the group as well as giving you guys a discount on HSLDA membership. So it was kind of fun for me because I came in on Monday morning and ran the report just to see what had come in over the weekend, and there were I think 29 different families who joined HSLDA over the weekend, all through that one organization.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, it was fun for me, and it was also fun to sign that check and send a little note with it. Dear, blank academy, thank you very much.
Yes. I mean, because in my experience with leadership of support groups, we're not a profit organization, and we're often looking for additional resources. What could you do with that in terms of hosting holiday parties, maybe paying for certain field trip admittances that charge? Now, I'm here in this DC area, there's so much for free with the Smithsonian and all, but in a lot of areas, there's an entrance fee. So there's so many possibilities. You can buy equipment and science resources and all kinds of things. So that's definitely something to consider for sure. One
of the fun stories that I just heard from a group a couple weeks ago, they are a pretty academically rigorous homeschool co-op. So they focus on a lot of classes, high end. They want really smart, kids who are willing to apply themselves. And they had a family apply, immigrant family from Central America. And the family basically told them, look, we want to get our kids the best education. The fees for the group were high enough that the family basically had to make a choice. Do we sign up with the co-op or do we get a new vehicle? And the family decided, you know what? The van is still crawling along barely. We'll just go ahead and do that because we want to get our kids into this co-op. And so the group used their HSLDA grant money to pay for the tuition fees for the kids, and just told the family, nope, you got some money, go spend it on a vehicle. We are glad to have such driven kids here who really want to learn.
Right. Wow. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine the family was probably like, oh, how blessed that family had to feel. So that's awesome. I wanted to talk, or actually I wanted to mention that a link that we can hopefully put in the chat for to be able to access our military discount. So if you're considering membership, then it would be hslda.org/military discount, all one word. So hslda.org/military discount. And that will drop you right into our military families resource page, which is part of the website Darren mentioned earlier. And so definitely that would be a good place to start if you're interested in membership. So I've been asking if you want to have any questions that you want to put in the comments, definitely, because now we're going to go ahead and take some time to go over any questions that any of our viewers have. And again, if you're watching the replay later, please put comments. You can comment on a replay. We typically, HSLDA is really good about going back in and responding to comments that come up on our Facebook Live. So please feel free to do that if you watch the replay later. You can also still go ahead and respond if you are a support group leader watching later, if the name of your group, where you're located, all of those things. I wanted to see if there's any comments, any questions, anything that has come up in the chat. Let's see here. I'm going to go back to the top. I saw that Jessica mentioned that she's at Fayetteville Fort Bragg. I don't know if you're part of Valor, Jessica, if you're still watching that support group I am familiar with at Fort Bragg. And Dr. Douglas says, listening from Cheyenne, Wyoming, military homeschool family, United States Air Force, retired 2015. Thank you for your service. I did not know that, Dr. Douglas. So I am the director of a local church homeschool support group, which is Homestead Homeschool Cooperative, a ministry of Homestead Baptist Church in Cheyenne, Wyoming. That is not exclusively for military homeschoolers, but we have a number of military families in our co-op. And that's one of the things that I hear, Dr. Douglas, too, is sometimes military families that homeschool are on an installation that doesn't have a military homeschool support group, or they have one that's small that maybe is focused on park days and play dates, and maybe your children are older and they're, you need more of a maybe academic support. So I don't want to not thank and shout out and appreciate those who have support groups that actually welcome us military in, because we do move. And when we step in and we volunteer, it can be hard on both of us when we have to say we have to leave mid-year and that position becomes vacant. So I recognize that challenge for the civilian groups when we leave, but I also appreciate those who welcome us in, because we want to be connected and we want to have as much understanding that we don't control when we move as much as we want to be able to. It is the needs of the military, or if whatever branch you're in. My husband would say, oh, it's up to the needs of the Navy. And I'm thinking, oh, I hope the needs of the Navy match with what I want. But sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. So Lily, I mentioned, she's a friend from North Carolina down at Camp Lejeune. Thanks for coming on. And Candace is at Quantico. Thank you, Candace. And Christine, I see she had a comment for me there. Holly Bartlett, I'm a special ed teacher that stopped teaching to homeschool our kids. We are stationed at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. Welcome, Holly. Thanks for joining. Let me see if there's any other comments that I don't see any particular questions. Let me see. Oh, I do see some now. Thanks for putting the link for the military discount. $15 off is there. A bunch of links have been put over in the chat. Does Camp Lejeune have a group? I can't find one. I will get the information to you. I know the school liaison officer who may be watching, Julie Armani. There is a group that the school liaison officer, started a while ago, even prior to my time in Camp Lejeune area. So I will get the information that I have to you, Lily, okay? And there's some more links for that military resource page I mentioned. And Cynthia, thanks for joining Military Reserves Family in Illinois. And so I appreciate you coming out on as well, because sometimes we don't mention our reserve families or our National Guard families, but you are as much a part of the military as the active duty, the veteran, the retired. So we welcome you and thank you for joining us. So I appreciate everyone. So would you also let us know in the comments if you would love more Facebook Lives for military families, and if you would be interested in certain topics. We are often making sure that the topics that we present are relevant and helpful to you as military homeschoolers. So I would appreciate any ideas or feedback, definitely, because we want to hear from you. We want to stay connected. So one final question, Darren, do you have any parting words of encouragement for our support group leaders?
Well, a lot of homeschoolers have probably never heard of HSLDA. They probably have no idea who their state homeschool organizations are. And of course, if you're stationed overseas, there aren't going to be those bigger state organizations. So most homeschoolers, though, know and love their local groups. So I guess my encouragement to you local group leaders is keep encouraging those families at their homeschooling. Sometimes you will be the biggest cheerleader in their lives.
Definitely. I couldn't have said that better. Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let's see. We have Lily says, yes, more lives would be great. Okay, you got it. I think that's the plan. And Mamba Caraba says, hello from Kansas. Hello, Mamba. How are you doing? Active duty Coast Guard family here. Yes, please. So I assume that's yes to more Facebook Lives. Well, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate that. So we are coming to a close, you all. This is a topic we could keep talking about. And Darren, I appreciate you so much for joining us for this conversation. Like I said, I hope this conversation has been an encouragement for those who are watching or those who will watch the replay. Cynthia Jackson just commented, this is helpful. It is good to know HSLDA has resources. Thank you. Yes, Cynthia, I will be very transparent that my journey with knowing all that HSLDA has to offer has been ongoing. And prior to actually becoming employed with HSLDA, which I have loved the whole experience, I will say that personally, honestly, I did not know all the resources. And so, yes, the legal, which is in the HSLDA, right? It's in the name of the organization. But there's so much more. And Darren has just talked to us at length about all the awesome opportunities of our leaders and support groups and members joining. And so, as well as I would be remiss in not mentioning the educational consulting side, because we have consultants from pre-K all the way to high school. I am a high school educational consultant, so I do free transcript reviews for our members. We work with NCAA and the core course worksheets. I know that scares people sometimes. And we have special needs consultants. We have bilingual outreach. So HSLDA has a lot of resources to make homeschooling possible, which is the mission, making homeschooling possible. So definitely, Cynthia. So Candace from Quantico, I would love to see a how to start homeschooling specifically for military families sometime in July as families are preparing to homeschool next school year. That's an awesome topic. So we will consider that, Candace. I'll also be in contact with you, because one of the things in terms of military outreach is I am available to do virtual workshops on topics relevant to homeschooling, military homeschooling. And for the local area, I am able to travel local within the Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland area, and maybe even get on the road to other states as well. So definitely, I appreciate that, Candace. And then Fort Knox Army family here. Awesome, awesome. Fabulous. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. And Darren, again, thank you so much. I always love talking to you and the information that you share, and just your very calm, very centered way of approaching the whole conversation, specifically, like I said, about child safety, but just in general, just how much you really share your experience as a homeschool dad, right? With the importance and having been homeschooled yourself, your experience with your parents and in support groups. And so you bring all that together in a nice way. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for hosting me today, Natalie. I do appreciate it.
Good. I appreciate your comments. So as military homeschool families, we face unique challenges, and sometimes we can feel disconnected and forgotten. Here at HSLDA, we're working hard to develop resources that will help you find connection and encouragement. So again, there are links there if you are a leader of a military homeschool support group, or if you are a member and your leader wasn't able to attend this live, please take the links down. Contact Darren at Group Services at HSLDA.org, or myself at military@HSLDA.org. I would love to get more of our military homeschool support groups listed in the directory. Take advantage of the benefits for you and for your members. HSLDA members as well also have access to a great legal team, and I mentioned the educational consultant. So we are available to help either CONUS, which we know is stateside, or OCONUS overseas. So if you're not already a member, we would love for you to join us. Find out more at hslda.org/join. And the military discount was already a link was already placed in the comments. So HSLDA posted some things there, and you are so welcome, Mom. I appreciate you. Thank you. You can also access previous military Facebook Lives and webinars. We have a link to access those, as well as all of the vastness of webinars that HSLD offers, because we know the need is there, and we want to try to come alongside as much as we can. We also have a YouTube playlist. HSLDA is on YouTube. There is a playlist for military Facebook Lives and webinars that you can access to get the ones that we've done in the past. So thanks so much, everyone. Darren, I appreciate you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And everyone, please have a wonderful, blessed day.
Thanks, Natalie.